The great crystal towers of Zentara Prime stretched into the purple sky like fingers reaching for the stars. Inside the largest tower, Ambassador Kepler stood before the massive viewing screen that showed the destruction of another world. His crystalline body pulsed with dim light as fear coursed through him. In all his 300 years of life, he had never seen anything like this. The screen displayed what had once been the thriving world of Nexus 7 now. It was nothing but floating rocks and glowing dust. 60 billion souls had lived there. Just 12 hours ago, now there was only silence and death. "Show me the attack again," Kepler said to the technician operating the recording device. The hologram flickered and showed the same horrible scene. Black ships appeared from nowhere, their hulls seeming to bend light around them. They moved through space like hunting animals, silent and deadly. When the defense fleet of Nexus 7 tried to fight back, their energy weapons passed right through the enemy ships as if they were made of air. Then came the killing blow. Beams of dark energy struck the planet's surface. Where they touched, matter simply stopped existing. Mountains, oceans, cities, people, all of it just vanished into nothing. Within 6 hours, an entire world was gone. Kepler turned away from the screen. Around the circular council chamber, representatives from all 12 member species sat in stunned silence. The Thraxians clicked their mandibles nervously. The gas-like luminari flickered between different colors of worry. Even the ancient Faldari, who had lived for thousands of years, looked afraid. "This makes 17 worlds in 6 months, said Captain Vexara of the Thraxian Defense Force. Her insect-like features were hard to read, and her voice carried the weight of defeat. "Our entire fleet has less than 800 ships remaining. At this rate, we have perhaps 2 weeks before they reach the core worlds." Admiral Zephic of the Luminary floated forward, his energy form crackling with agitation. "Our weapons are useless against them. They phase through our shields like they don't exist. How do you fight an enemy you cannot touch?" "We don't know." "What they want," added Dr. Yelleneth, the Council's chief scientist. "They don't try to communicate. They don't take prisoners or resources. They just destroy everything and move on. It's like they want to erase all life from the galaxy." Kepler walked to the center of the chamber. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council had maintained peace through diplomacy and wisdom. Wars were things of the ancient past, settled by discussion and compromise. Their military existed mainly for exploration and rescue missions. None of them had ever faced an enemy that wanted only death. "What about the other species?" asked Council. Leader Morden, his reptilian form coiled in his floating chair. "Surely there are others in the galaxy who might help us." Dr. Yelleneth consulted her datapad. "We have contacted every known spacefaring civilization within 500 light years. The Cathari are too far away and refuse to get involved. Zenlian Empire is fighting their own civil war. The machine races of the Outer Rim went silent 3 months ago. We fear they have already been destroyed. Then we need to look beyond the known species," Kepler said quietly. An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. Everyone knew what he meant. In the deep files of the Galactic Survey Corps were reports of worlds and species that had been classified as too dangerous to contact. Places where evolution had taken a different, more violent path. "You're talking about the quarantine sectors," said Admiral Zephic. "Those species were isolated for good reasons. Were they?" Kepler challenged. "Or were we simply too afraid to understand them?" Dr. Yelleneth pulled up a holographic star map. Red zones marked the quarantined areas where survey teams had detected dangerous civilizations but made no contact. There are 47 systems in the quarantine list. Most show signs of internal warfare or aggressive expansion. We deem them too risky for peaceful contact. "Tell us about the closest one," Kepler ordered. The display zoomed in on an unremarkable yellow star. "System designation Sol. Third planet shows clear signs of technological civilization. The inhabitants call their world Earth and themselves humans. Our long-range scans indicate they have achieved basic spaceflight within the last 50 of their years." "What made us classify them as dangerous?" Captain Vexara asked. Dr. Yelleneth hesitated. "Their planet itself. We've never seen anything like it. The gravity is twice what most of us consider safe. The atmosphere contains poisonous oxygen in dangerous concentrations. The weather patterns include violent storms that would destroy our cities. Worse, the planet is tectonically active with frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Like a typical hostile world, Admiral Zefek commented. Why didn't they abandon it and find a better planet? That's just it, Dr. Yelena continued. They didn't just survive on this world, they thrived. Our scans show massive cities, complex technology, and a population in the billions.
Oh, but here's
The disturbing part, they're constantly fighting each other. We detected over 300 separate wars happening at the same time during our last survey. The council members shifted uncomfortably. The idea of a species that fought wars for anything other than absolute survival was alien to them. There's more, Dr. Yeleneth added reluctantly. They've weaponized their planet's dangerous elements. They use controlled explosions for everything. From mining to transportation, they've learned to harness nuclear forces not just for energy, but for weapons. Our analysts believe they possess enough destructive power to sterilize their entire planet several times over. Monsters, whispered one of the smaller delegates. Perhaps Kepler said slowly, or perhaps exactly what we need. He walked back. To the viewing screen showing the remains of Nexus 7, we are a peaceful people. For 3 millennia, we have solved our problems through wisdom and cooperation. But wisdom cannot fight an enemy that phases through matter. Cooperation cannot stop weapons that unmake reality itself. You're suggesting we contact a species of violent primitives? Admiral Zefek's energy form flared bright orange with shock. Suggesting we contact a species that has survived on a world that would kill any of us within minutes, Kethro replied. A species that has learned to fight and die and still keep fighting. A species that might understand warfare in ways we never could. Captain Vexara clicked her mandibles thoughtfully.
nice.
It could work. If they're as aggressive as the reports suggest, they might be willing to fight when diplomacy fails. Or they might see us as another enemy to destroy, warned Dr. Yeleneth. We make sure they don't, Kethra said firmly. We approach them as supplicants, not conquerors. We offer them technology, knowledge, a place in galactic civilization, in exchange for their help against an enemy that threatens all life. Council leader Morden raised his head. This goes against everything our civilization stands for. Talking about unleashing a potentially violent species on the galaxy? The alternative is extinction, Kethra replied simply. The Void Collective, or whatever they call themselves, will not stop until every world is dead. Have failed us. Perhaps it's time to learn from those who never had the luxury of peace. The vote was close, but fear won over principle. 7 species voted to send the distress signal, 5 voted against. It was enough Dr. Yeleneth prepared the transmission, a carefully crafted message. Using mathematical constants and universal symbols, it explained their situation, provided coordinates for a meeting place, and ended with a simple plea for help against an enemy that threatened all life in the galaxy. As the message beamed toward the small yellow star called Sol, none of them knew they had just made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. They thought they were calling for help from primitive warriors. They had no idea they were about to meet Deathworlders. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez was halfway through her 3rd cup of coffee when the computers at Blackbird 7 started going crazy. The Deep Space Monitoring Station orbited Neptune in the cold darkness, watching for asteroids and space debris that might threaten Earth's outer colonies. It was usually the most boring job in the Solar Defense Force. Amy rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the screens again. Strange signals were coming from empty space, but they weren't random static. The patterns were too organized, too purposeful. She called up the analysis program and waited for results. Helen, what do you make of this? She asked the stations. Artificial intelligence. The signal appears to be artificial in origin. Lieutenant Rodriguez, the computer replied in its calm female voice. It contains mathematical sequences, including prime numbers, pi, and the golden ratio. This suggests an attempt at communication using universal mathematical constants. Amy sat up straighter. First contact protocols had been drilled into every officer, but no one really believed they would ever be used. Are you saying this is from aliens? That is the most probable explanation. The signal strength suggests it originated from outside our solar system. I am detecting multiple layers of information encoded within the transmission. Put it on the main screen and start decoding. The display filled with numbers and symbols that slowly began to make sense. Pictures formed, star maps, planetary systems, and something that made Amy's blood run cold. The images showed worlds being destroyed, entire planets reduced to nothing but space dust. Helen, transmit this to Earth Command immediately. Priority Alpha. Transmission sent, Lieutenant. Earth Command acknowledges receipt and is routing to the highest levels. Within 6 hours, Amy found herself on a secure video call with people she had only seen on news broadcasts. Admiral Jake Morrison sat at the head of a long table surrounded by military officers and government officials. President Lisa Grant leaned forward as Amy finished her report. So let me understand this correctly, the president said, unknown. Aliens are asking for military help against something that's destroying entire worlds. Yes, ma'am. The mathematical translations are clear. They're requesting immediate assistance and have provided coordinates for a meeting in the Wolf 359 system. Admiral Morrison studied the decoded images on his tablet. These destruction patterns don't match any weapon we know about. Whatever! Their fighting has technology far beyond anything we've developed. Dr. Kate Phillips, the government's chief xenobiologist, spoke up from her seat. The fact that they can send faster-than-light communications means their technology is centuries ahead of ours. If they need our help, it suggests they're facing something truly dangerous. Or it's a trap, said General Frank Stone, head of Colonial Defense. We send our ships to this meeting, and they destroy our fleet. Why would they need to trick us? As Dr. Phillips argued. If they wanted to destroy us, they could probably do it without leaving their home system. The energy requirements? For FTL communication alone suggests they have power sources we can barely imagine. President Grant looked around the table. What's our current military strength? Admiral Morrison consulted his files. We have 47 active warships, mostly patrol vessels and destroyers. Our largest ships are the 12 battleships of the Solar Defense Fleet. Total personnel across all ships is about 30,000. Against aliens with faster-than-light technology, General Stone added grimly. There's another consideration, Dr. Phillips said. If there really is a threat out there destroying civilizations, it will eventually reach us. This might be our only chance to fight it alongside allies rather than alone. The debate continued for hours. Some argued for caution, others for aggressive action. Finally, President Grant made the decision. Admiral Morrison, select one ship. For first contact, if these aliens are genuine, we'll consider their request. If it's a trap, we limit our losses to a single vessel. Admiral Morrison nodded and pulled up personnel files. The U.S. Defiance, Captain Ben Carter commanding. She's our newest battleship with the best crew in the fleet. Captain Ben Carter received his orders while his ship was docked at Mars Station. For routine maintenance, the Defiance was a massive vessel, 800 meters long and bristling with railguns, missile tubes, and plasma cannons. Her crew of 1,500 included 200 Space Marines trained for boarding actions. And Planetary Assault Carter was a practical man who had earned his rank fighting pirates in the asteroid belt. His first officer, Commander Zoe Barnes, had studied 17 different Earth languages and was the fleet's expert on communication with unknown cultures. Dr. Sam Wright. His science officer had degrees in physics, engineering, and xenobiology. Colonel Ray Hayes commanded the Marine Detachment. His soldiers were veterans of the colonial wars, trained in zero-gravity combat and armed with the latest powered armor and energy weapons. So we're really doing this, Commander Barnes said as they reviewed the mission files. First contact. With an alien species, first contact with desperate aliens asking for military help, Captain Carter corrected. That's either very good or very bad for us. Dr. Wright looked up from his analysis of the alien transmission. The mathematics they used are incredibly sophisticated. Their understanding of physics is clearly more advanced than ours. But there's something interesting about their communication style. What do you mean? Carter asked. They're being very polite. It's almost apologetic. The language pattern suggests they're asking for help, not demanding it. That doesn't match the behavior of a species trying to lure us into a trap. The Defiance left Mars orbit 3 days later, her faster-than-light drive pushing her toward Wolf 359 at speeds that bent space around the ship. The journey took 18 hours, a miracle of human engineering that had taken 50 years to develop. When they arrived at the coordinates, they found a ship waiting for them that took their breath away. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the Defiance, and seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. It had no visible weapons, no armor plating, no defensive systems of any kind. That's either the most peaceful ship I've ever seen, or the most confident, Carter said from his command chair. Commander Barnes was already working on establishing communication. The alien ship responded immediately with the same mathematical sequences from the original message, then switched to basic pictographs that gradually became more complex. Within 2 hours, they had established a basic translation protocol. The aliens identified themselves as the Zirathi and requested permission to come aboard the Defiance for face-to-face negotiations. Should we allow it? Commander Barnes asked. Carter considered the options. They could have destroyed us the moment we arrived if they wanted to. Colonel Hayes, have your Marines ready, but keep them out of sight. We'll meet them in the main conference room. The alien transport was a small crystal pod that docked with the Defiance's airlock. The first alien to step aboard was unlike anything in human imagination. Ambassador Kepler stood nearly 3 meters tall, his body composed of what looked like a living diamond that refracted light into rainbow patterns. He moved with fluid grace despite having no visible joints or limbs in the human sense. "Greetings, humans of Earth," Kepler said through a translation device that projected his words in perfect English. I am Ambassador Kepler of the Galactic Council. We come seeking your aid in a matter of great urgency. Captain Carter stepped forward. I'm Captain Ben Carter of the United Earth ship Defiance. We received your message about worlds being destroyed. Yes. We face an enemy that calls itself the Void Collective. In 6 months, they have destroyed 17 of our worlds. Our weapons cannot touch their ships. Our defenses are useless against their technology. Dr. Wright leaned forward. Have faster-than-light travel and energy-based weapons. How is it possible that your technology can't fight them? Kepler's crystalline form dimmed. Their ships exist partially outside normal space. Our energy weapons pass through them as if they were not there. Their own weapons unmake matter at the quantum level. We have never encountered anything like them. And you think we can help? Carter asked carefully. We have studied your species from a distance. Your world is classified as a Class 12 death world, hostile to all known forms of life. Yet you not only survived, but prospered. Our records show. You have engaged in constant warfare for your entire recorded history. Colonel Hayes shifted slightly. You're saying you want us because we're good at fighting? We are a peaceful civilization, Colonel Hayes. We have maintained galactic harmony for 3,000 years through diplomacy and cooperation. But peace cannot fight an enemy that seeks only destruction. Perhaps those who learn to survive on a death world can teach us how to fight an enemy we cannot understand. Captain Carter exchanged glances with his officers. Show us the enemy. Show us what we're dealing with. The holographic display filled with images of destruction that made even the hardened Marines uncomfortable. Entire star systems reduced to debris fields. Billions of lives extinguished in hours. Ships that seemed to phase in and out of reality like ghosts. When's the next attack? Carter asked. Intelligence suggests they will strike the Kepler 442 system within the week. It has a population of 8 billion across 4 inhabited worlds. The joint fleet assembled at the edge of the Kepler 442 system looked impressive until you counted the numbers. 847 alien ships of various sizes floated in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with polished metal and energy fields. They looked more like works of art than weapons of war. Beside them, 12 human ships seemed tiny and crude by comparison. The U.S. Defiance and her sister ships were built like flying fortresses, their dark hulls covered in armor plating and weapons systems. The alien ships were smooth and elegant. The human vessels were angular and brutal. Captain, Ben Carter stood on his bridge, watching the alien fleet through the main viewer. Commander Zoe Barnes worked at her station, coordinating with the various alien commanders through the translation systems. Their formation is perfect, Dr. Sam Wright observed. Every ship in exactly the right position, maintaining precise distances. It's like watching a ballet. It's like watching a parade, Colonel Ray Hayes said grimly. He had spent the last 3 days studying alien military doctrine and wasn't impressed. They line up nice and neat, exchange fire at maximum range, and whoever takes more damage retreats first? Captain Carter nodded. No wonder they're losing. They're fighting like it's a game with rules. The alien fleet commander was Admiral Veltar of the Thraxian Defense Force. Her insect-like appearance was intimidating, but her tactical thinking was completely foreign to human military minds. She had arranged her ships in a complex geometric pattern that looked beautiful but made no tactical sense. Captain Carter, came Admiral Veltar's voice through the communication system. We have detected Void Collective ships approaching the outer system. They will arrive in approximately 2 hours. How many ships? Carter asked. Our sensors indicate 43 vessels of unknown configuration. Carter did the math quickly. The aliens outnumbered the enemy 20-1, but based on previous battles, it wouldn't matter. Admiral, I recommend we reposition the fleet into a more defensive formation. Our current formation has been calculated for maximum efficiency. Admiral Veltar replied. Each ship has clear firing lines and optimal spacing for energy dissipation. Commander Barnes leaned close to Carter. They've never fought a real war. To them, this is like a formal duel with established rules. The enemy doesn't follow rules, Carter said. Opened a channel to all human ships. All vessels. This is Defiance Actual. Prepare for combat operations. Remember, we're dealing with an enemy that can phase through normal matter. Load kinetic rounds and prepare chemical warheads. Dr. Wright looked confused. Chemical warheads? Against ships with advanced technology? Sometimes the old ways work. Best Colonel Hayes explained. You can phase through an energy beam, but try phasing through 10,000 pieces of spinning metal and explosive fragments. The Void Collective arrived exactly when predicted. Their ships were unlike anything in the galaxy. Black vessels that seemed to bend light around them, moving through space like living shadows. They didn't announce themselves or make demands. They simply began attacking. The alien fleet opened. Fire with their energy weapons, brilliant beams of plasma, and coherent light that should have destroyed any normal spacecraft. Instead, the beams passed harmlessly through the void ships as if they weren't there. Impossible, Admiral Veltar transmitted. Our weapons have no effect. The void ships responded with weapons that defied understanding. Dark energy beams struck the alien vessels, and where they hit, matter simply ceased to exist. Entire sections of ships vanished, leaving behind gaps that exposed the interior to space. All human ships advanced to attack position, Carter ordered. Captain, are you insane? Admiral Veltar's voice cracked with panic. Our weapons cannot touch them. Ours can. All ships, maximum acceleration. Prepare spread pattern attack. The 12 human ships broke formation and accelerated directly toward the enemy fleet. The alien observers, it looked like a suicide charge. The human vessels were outnumbered and outgunned, rushing toward an enemy that had just proven immune to conventional weapons. Commander Lisa Park of the destroyer, U.S. Vigilant, was the first to open fire. Her ship's railguns launched solid tungsten projectiles at a significant fraction of the speed of light. Behind the kinetic rounds came a cloud of metal fragments and chemical explosive warheads. The void ships tried to phase through the attack, but solid matter behaved differently than energy beams. The tungsten rounds punched through their holes, while the explosive fragments filled the space around them with spinning debris. Direct hit on the lead enemy vessel, reported Lieutenant Tom Baker from the weapons station. Their bleeding atmosphere. Captain Carter smiled grimly. All ships, continue attack. Focus fire on damaged targets. The battle became chaos as human tactics met alien technology. The void ships could phase through energy weapons, but they couldn't phase through physical objects that weren't specifically targeted. The space around then became a deadly cloud of metal fragments, chemical explosions, and kinetic projectiles. The UES Hammer, commanded by Captain Rick Stone, scored the first kill when her nuclear-tipped torpedo detonated inside a void ship that had tried to phase around it. The explosion tore the enemy vessel apart from the inside. How were they doing this? Admiral Veltar transmitted in amazement. Physics, Dr. Wright replied. Their phasing technology probably works by shifting their molecular structure to avoid interaction with energy-based attacks. But they can't avoid solid matter without expending enormous amounts of energy. The Void Collective had never faced an enemy that used primitive kinetic weapons alongside advanced technology. Their ships were designed to fight energy weapon civilizations. It's not Deathworlders, who threw chunks of metal at relativistic speeds. Commander Barnes coordinated the human attack from her position on the Defiance.
Oh, yes.
Vigilant and Hammer continue. Bombardment Pattern Alpha. Ranger and Striker move to flanking positions. Remember, they can't phase through solid objects. The human ships moved in ways that violated every principle of galactic warfare. Instead of maintaining formation, they scattered and attacked from multiple angles. Instead of fighting at long range, they closed to point-blank distance, where their weapons were most effective. Colonel Hayes watched the battle from the Marine deck, where his soldiers were preparing for something the galaxy had never seen: a boarding action against enemy vessels. Captain, the UES Ranger has grappled with a damaged void ship, reported the tactical officer. Hayes, you're up. Carter said. Colonel Hayes and 50 Marines launched from the Defiance in armored pods that crashed through the hull of the void ship. Inside, they found corridors filled with strange technology and creatures that had never faced close combat. The Void Collective had absorbed dozens of civilizations, but none of them had been warriors. Their soldiers were designed for operating advanced technology, not for fighting armored humans with chemical explosive weapons in narrow corridors. Resistance is light, Hayes reported over the radio. These things have never been in a real fight. Human Marines advanced through the ship, using tactics developed in 100 colonial wars. They threw grenades around corners, used shaped charges to blow through barriers, and fought with a savagery that the absorbed alien consciousnesses couldn't understand. Within 30 minutes, the void ship was under human control. Hayes and his team captured the bridge and began downloading information from the alien computers. The tide of battle turned as more human ships joined the attack. The Ease Thunder used her heavy railguns to punch holes in void ship hulls, while the UES Lightning filled space with fragmentation rounds that made phasing impossible. By the end of the engagement, 23 void ships had been destroyed or captured. 3 human vessels were damaged, and the UES Defender was lost with all hands, over 400 people. The alien fleet had watched in stunned silence as 12 primitive ships accomplished what their entire force could not. They had witnessed something that changed their understanding of warfare forever. How do you accept such losses? Admiral Veltar asked Carter after the battle. Every war has a cost, Carter replied simply. The question is whether the cause is worth paying it. Ambassador Kepler, who had observed the battle from a safe distance, transmitted a message to the human fleet. Captain Carter, your tactics are unlike anything we have ever seen. Will you teach us to fight as you do? Carter looked at the debris field where the Defender had died, then at the captured void ships that would provide valuable intelligence. Admiral Morrison is going to want to see this. We're going to need more ships. The first human victory against the Void Collective sent shockwaves through the galaxy. For 3,000 years, the galactic civilizations had believed that advanced technology would always triumph over primitive tactics. They had just learned that sometimes the most advanced technology was no match for creatures who had learned to kill or be killed on a world that tried to murder them every day. The Deathworlders had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 weeks after the victory at Kepler 442, Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Zentara Prime and wondered what he had gotten humanity into. The crystalline halls buzzed with activity as representatives from 12 different species tried to understand something completely foreign to them. How to Wage Total War. Morrison had arrived with 20 more human ships and 5,000 military advisors. What he found was a galactic civilization in the process of complete transformation. The aliens were eager students, but learning human military doctrine was like teaching children to breathe underwater. The concept remains difficult for us, Ambassador Kepler admitted as he studied the tactical displays. You speak of acceptable losses as if death in battle is expected. It is expected, Morrison replied bluntly. War isn't a game where everyone goes home afterward. People die. The question is whether their deaths accomplish something worthwhile. Captain Sandra Mills had been assigned to train mixed-species units. She stood before a group of Thraxian warriors and Luminari energy beings, trying to explain basic infantry tactics. The cultural barriers were enormous. When I give the order to advance, you move forward together, Mills explained. You don't stop to help wounded soldiers during the assault. You don't retreat when someone gets hurt. You complete the mission first, then help the wounded. A young Thraxian named Kix Van clicked his mandibles nervously. But abandoning wounded companions goes against everything we believe about honor and cooperation. Honor doesn't win battles, Mills said harshly. Dead heroes don't save civilizations. Your choice is simple. Learn to fight like humans or watch your worlds burn. The transformation wasn't just military. Dr. Kate Phillips worked with alien scientists to develop new technologies that combined human engineering with alien materials science. The results were revolutionary. The key breakthrough came when we stopped thinking about their phasing ability as magic. Dr. Phillips explained to a mixed group of human and alien researchers. It's just advanced manipulation of matter at the quantum level. And every technology has weaknesses. Dr. Sam Wright had been promoted to Chief Science Officer for the Joint Fleet. He worked with Zerathi crystal engineers to create weapons that could disrupt the Void Collective's phasing technology. We've developed electromagnetic pulse generators that can interfere with their quantum manipulation, Wright reported. Combined with our kinetic weapons, we can force them to choose between phasing through our attacks or maintaining their ship's structural integrity. The real change came when Colonel Ray Hayes established the first integrated training facility. Human Marines worked alongside alien soldiers, teaching them not just tactics but the mindset needed for effective combat. Hayes stood before a mixed group of recruits from 6 different species. War is ugly. War is brutal. War is unfair. The enemy doesn't care about your feelings or your honor code. They want you dead, and they'll use any method to achieve that goal. A Luminar recruit flickered between colors of confusion. Oh, but surely. There are rules that govern honorable combat. The only rule is survival, Hayes replied. You can be honorable when the war is over. Right now, your job is to kill the enemy before they kill you and everyone you care about. The integration wasn't easy. Alien soldiers struggled with human concepts like acceptable casualties in total war. They had spent 3,000 years viewing conflict as something to be avoided or resolved through negotiation. Commander Lisa Park worked with Admiral Veltar to redesign battle formations. The alien preference for neat, organized patterns had to be replaced with chaotic but effective human tactics. Your ships are spread too far apart, Park explained, studying the holographic fleet display. You need to concentrate firepower and coordinate attacks. One ship fighting alone is easy prey. 20 ships attacking together can destroy anything. Admiral Veltar's insect features showed frustration. But if we cluster our ships, we risk massive casualties from a single enemy weapon. Yes, you do, Park agreed. But you also risk total defeat if you can't generate enough firepower to break through their defenses. Sometimes you have to accept heavy losses to achieve victory. The first major test of the new combined tactics came when the Void Collective attacked the industrial world of New Cattle. The defenders included 40 human ships and 300 alien vessels trained in human methods. Captain Ben Carter commanded the defense from his new flagship, the UES Retribution. The ship was larger than the Defiance and mounted weapons designed specifically to fight the Void Collective. Enemy fleet detected, reported Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, who had been promoted and transferred to Carter's tactical staff. 87 ships, approaching in standard Void formation. All ships implement Battle Plan Omega, Carter ordered. Remember, mixed units stay together? Human ships provide kinetic support. Alien ships handle energy suppression. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Human ships and alien vessels fought as a coordinated force, using tactics that combined the best of both approaches. Thraxian warriors provided heavy assault capabilities, while Luminari scouts used their energy forms for reconnaissance and electronic warfare. The Void Collective found themselves facing an enemy that had learned from previous encounters. Instead of ships that could be easily destroyed, they fought vessels that worked together in ways their absorbed knowledge couldn't predict. Commander Zoe Barnes coordinated the battle from the communications center. She had learned to speak several alien languages and served as the link between human and alien commanders. Thraxian Squadron Alpha, adjust heading 15 degrees. Luminari scouts report enemy ships trying to flank from the port side. Human destroyers prepare fragmentation barrage. The new tactics worked. By combining human kinetic weapons with alien energy shields and sensors, the joint fleet could both damage and track void ships. The enemy's advantages were neutralized by coordinated attacks that gave them no time to phase between different states of matter. During the battle, Captain Rick Stone of the UES Hammer led the first successful joint boarding action. Human Marines and Thraxian soldiers fought side by side through the corridors of a captured void ship. "The aliens are learning," Stone reported to Carter. "These Thraxian warriors fight like demons when you point them in the right direction." The real breakthrough came when Dr. Wright's research team successfully reverse-engineered void technology from captured ships. The discovery was both terrifying and enlightening. "The Void Collective isn't one species," Wright reported to Admiral Morrison and the Galactic Council. "It's a hive mind composed of absorbed civilizations. Every species they've destroyed becomes part of their collective consciousness." Ambassador Kethver's crystalline form dimmed with horror. "You mean the billions who died on Nexus 7 are still alive inside the enemy?" "Worse than that," Wright continued. "We've identified fragments of over 1,000 different civilizations in their databanks. This has been going on for millions of years. They're not just destroying worlds. They're collecting them. The revelation changed everything. The war wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about liberation. Every battle wasn't just preventing destruction, but potentially freeing billions of absorbed minds." Admiral Morrison stood before the assembled commanders of the Joint Fleet. "We now know what we're really fighting. This isn't a war of conquest or territory. It's a war to free every civilization the Void Collective has ever absorbed." "But how do we fight a hive mind that spans galaxies?" Admiral Veltar asked. Morrison smiled grimly. "The same way humans have always fought impossible odds. We find their weakness, hit them where it hurts, and keep fighting until they're dead." Dr. Wright had found that weakness in the captured data. Their hive mind has a central control node located in the Andromeda galaxy. If we can reach it and destroy the central intelligence, the entire collective should collapse. "Andromeda is 2.5 million light-years away," Dr. Phillips pointed out. "Even with their technology, that's an impossible journey." "Not impossible," Wright corrected. "It's just extremely dangerous. We could modify their own portal technology to create a one-way passage, but there would be no return journey until the mission is complete." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They were talking about a suicide mission across intergalactic space to attack an enemy at the heart of their own territory. Captain Carter spoke first. "How many ships would we need?" "Everything we have," Morrison replied. "Every human vessel, every alien ship we can train, every soldier we can recruit. This isn't just Earth's fight anymore. It's the galaxy's last chance." The decision was unanimous. The Joint Fleet would prepare for the most audacious military operation in Galactic history, an assault on the Void Collective's home base in another galaxy. As the planning began, one thing became clear. The peaceful civilizations of the Milky Way had learned something from their Deathworld allies. Sometimes the only way to preserve life was to be willing to sacrifice everything for victory. The portal to Andromeda opened like a wound in space itself. 2 years of preparation had led to this moment, the largest military fleet in galactic history. Preparing to cross the void between galaxies on a mission that no one expected to survive, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution and watched 50,000 ships from 12 different species prepare for the jump. Human vessels floated alongside Thraxian battleships, Luminari scouts, and Zerathi support vessels. All of them bore the scars of 2 years of intensive warfare against Void Collective Advance forces. "Final systems check complete," reported Commander Zoe Barnes, now serving as Morrison's chief of staff. "All ships report ready for intergalactic transit." Captain Ben Carter commanded the assault fleet from his position in the advanced squadron. Around him, the best-trained soldiers in the galaxy waited for the order that would send them on a journey with no return ticket. "You know this is insane, right?" Dr. Sam Wright said from his station. "We're attacking the home base of a hive. Mind that has absorbed 1,000 civilizations over millions of years." "Sanity is overrated," Captain Carter replied. "Besides, someone has to do it." The journey through the portal was unlike anything they had experienced. Space twisted around them as they crossed the infinite darkness between galaxies. Many of the alien crew members became sick from the transition, but the humans seemed to handle it better. "Deathworlders," muttered Colonel Ray Hayes as he watched a Luminari recruit flicker with distress. "We're used to things trying to kill us." Gosh. When they emerged in Andromeda, the sight that greeted them was beyond horrifying. Entire star systems had been stripped of matter and converted into massive structures that pulsed with dark energy. Billions of worlds reduced to raw materials for the Void Collective's expansion. Sensors detect approximately 2 million enemy vessels in this galaxy. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez reported from her position at Tactical. They're concentrated around a central structure near the Galactic core. Captain Sandra Mills, now commanding her own battleship, studied the enemy formations through her ship's instruments. "They know we're here. The whole galaxy is mobilizing against us." The assault began immediately. There was no time for reconnaissance or careful planning. The portal had collapsed behind them, and their only choice was to fight through everything the Void Collective could throw at them. Human tactics, refined through 2 years of constant warfare, proved effective even in this nightmare scenario. The joint fleet spread out and attacked on multiple fronts, using speed and aggression to prevent the enemy from organizing an effective defense. Captain Rick Stone led a mixed squadron of human destroyers and Thraxian assault ships through the outer system defenses. His ships moved like hunting packs, striking hard and fast before the enemy could respond. "Remember, we're not trying to hold territory," Stone transmitted to his squadron. "We punch through, cause damage, and keep moving toward the core." The enemy threw everything at them. Void ships materialized from empty space, their weapons unmacking matter at the quantum level. But the joint fleet had learned to fight these enemies. They used kinetic weapons and electromagnetic pulses to disrupt the phasing technology, and close to point-blank range where human marines could board and capture enemy vessels. Lisa Park commanded a wing of alien ships that had been completely retrained in human methods. Her Luminari scouts used their energy forms to infiltrate enemy systems, while Zerothi engineers provided technological support. "The aliens have learned." "Well," Colonel Hayes observed as he watched mixed units assault a Void Collective stronghold. 2 years ago, they couldn't imagine fighting this way. They're as vicious as any human soldiers. The real battle began when they reached the Galactic core. The central structure was impossible to describe, a twisted amalgamation of technology. From 1,000 dead civilizations, held together by dark energy and powered by the absorbed consciousness of billions of beings. Dr. Kate Phillips, analyzing the structure from her mobile laboratory ship, made a disturbing discovery. The entire thing is alive. It's not just a machine or a building. It's a living entity, composed of every mind the collective has ever absorbed. Then how do we kill something like that? Admiral Morrison asked. Dr. Wright studied the data streaming in from their sensors. The same way we kill anything else. Find its brain and put a bullet through it. The assault on the central structure required every tactic humanity had ever developed. Marines in powered armor fought through corridors filled with the technology of dead worlds. Engineers used explosives to blast through barriers that bent space around them. Pilots flew their ships into impossible formations to deliver the killing blow. Captain Carter led the final assault personally, taking a strike team deep into the heart of the structure. With him went volunteers from every species in the fleet. Humans, Thraxions, Luminari, Xerathi, and others who had learned to fight like Deathworlders. Inside the core, they found something that defied understanding. The central intelligence wasn't a machine or a building, it was a sphere of pure consciousness, containing the minds of every being the Void Collective had ever absorbed. "We can hear them," whispered Dr. Phillips, who had insisted on joining. The assault team, billions of voices crying out for freedom. The final confrontation was both physical and mental. The Collective's intelligence tried to absorb their minds to add them to its vast store of consciousness. But human minds, forged on a death world and tempered by constant warfare, proved resistant to absorption. "You cannot defeat us," the Collective spoke through 1,000 different voices. "We are eternal. We are inevitable. We have consumed galaxies." Captain Carter raised his weapon, a simple kinetic rifle loaded with depleted uranium rounds. "Maybe you are eternal, but we're too stupid to know when we're beaten." The battle was brief, but decisive. Human explosives designed to work in any environment tore through the quantum matrix that held the collective consciousness together. As the central intelligence died, its control over the absorbed minds began to fail. Across 2 galaxies, void, collective ships suddenly went silent. The hive mind that had controlled them for millions of years was gone, leaving behind only the confused consciousness of the species they had absorbed. The victory came at a terrible cost. Half the joint fleet was destroyed in the assault, including many of the humans who had volunteered for the mission. Admiral Morrison died when his ship was caught in the collapse of the central structure. Captain Carter barely escaped with his life, but they had one. The Void Collective was broken, its absorbed civilizations slowly beginning to remember who they had been before their absorption. Worlds that had been dead for millions of years began to show signs of life as freed minds, to control of their technology. The survivors spent months helping the liberated civilizations rebuild. Dr. Wright worked with freed scientists to understand and reverse the absorption process. Commander Barnes helped establish communication between species that had been enemies for eons. Captain Carter, now the senior human officer, stood on the observation deck of a restored space station and watched. Ships from 100 different civilizations working together. Former Void Collective vessels had been converted into rescue ships, medical facilities, and exploration vessels. "Was it worth it?" Dr. Phillips asked, joining him at the viewing port. Carter considered the question as he watched Thraxian warriors, teaching human martial arts to newly freed aliens, while human engineers worked alongside Xerathi crystalsmiths to repair damaged worlds. "Ask me in 100 years," he said finally. "When these civilizations have had time to grow and explore and become something new." The portal home opened 6 months later, built by a coalition of freed civilizations who wanted to thank the galaxy that had saved them. The surviving ships returned to find the Milky Way changed as well. The Galactic Council had been reformed with humans, serving as military advisors and peacekeepers. The peaceful species had learned that sometimes violence was necessary to protect peace, while humanity had learned that their greatest strength wasn't their weapons, but their ability to inspire others to fight for something greater than themselves. Galaxy was no longer the same place of naive peace it had been before the Void Collective. Hot, but it was stronger, more united, and ready to face whatever challenges the universe might bring. The Deathworlders had taught them all how to survive.